Europe betrayed from within. Spain turns into Russia's ATM as Sanchez defies Trump amid crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to World Insight. The European Union is painting itself as a moral fortress, calling for pressure on Moscow. But behind the stage, a bitter reality is unfolding. Spain has quietly surged its imports of Russian gas, effectively turning itself into a loyal ATM for the very target Brussels claims it wants to strangle. As the Strait of Hormuz chokes under the weight of escalating tensions with Iran, moral slogans are rapidly giving way to raw survival interests. Madrid has pivoted sharply, pouring money into Moscow at a pace that has stunned the rest of Europe. And at the center of the storm stands Pedro Sánchez, calling for peace while openly challenging Donald Trump, as if transatlantic tensions were merely background noise. The EU speaks of unity, but in reality, it is tearing itself apart from within. This crisis reveals a harsh truth. When interests are pushed to the edge, noble values evaporate faster than the smoke of war. Sanctions collapse from within. The numbers tell a chilling story. In just 1 month, the EU spent $1.45 billion on Russian gas. At the top of that list, Spain. Imports of Russian LNG surged by 124%, turning Brussels' hardline rhetoric into empty noise. While the EU tightens sanctions on paper, Madrid quietly opens the financial floodgates, becoming a key energy hub that keeps Russia's system running. The cause? Brutally simple. With the Strait of Hormuz under pressure and Middle Eastern supply disrupted, the global energy market trembles. In that moment, morality is pushed aside. Spain turns to Russia almost instinctively. Russian gas becomes both lifeline and a financial pipeline flowing straight back to Moscow. Spain, the West's internal rebel. But the shock doesn't stop at energy. It escalates into direct political confrontation. While NATO braces for the Iran crisis, Sanchez publicly criticizes U.S. intervention in the Middle East, calling it a dangerous mistake that could spiral out of control. At the same time, Spain limits the role of U.S. military bases on its territory. This is not just diplomacy, it directly impacts Washington's military reach. Spain is now playing a double game, funding Russia economically, while challenging America politically. A move many analysts bluntly describe as a rebellion within the West. The collapse of EU moral authority. This is no longer about gas imports or speeches. It exposes a deeper layer, where slogans collapse under the weight of real interests. The EU once declared it would cut off financial lifelines to Moscow. Yet Russian gas continues flowing into European ports. Money continues moving. Sanctions begin to resemble political theater rather than real strategy. Spain embodies this contradiction perfectly. One hand raises the banner of values. The other signs massive energy contracts. The question becomes unavoidable. What is Europe's real position? The energy domino effect. Spain may be the first crack, but not the last. As Madrid accelerates imports, other countries begin recalculating. Energy markets don't follow slogans, they follow supply and price. And under pressure, every nation understands one thing. Whoever secures gas first, survives. Sanctions, ironically, create new channels for Russian energy to flow back into Europe. Instead of weakening Moscow, Europe is entangling itself in deeper dependency. Hormuz, the breaking point. Everything converges at one critical choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. As oil tankers slow, transport costs surge, and Middle Eastern supply tightens, Europe is pushed into a corner. Spain reacts first, fast, decisive, and calculated. While Brussels debates policy, the market moves on its own brutal logic. Where energy flows, power follows. NATO under strain. This crisis goes beyond energy, it hits the core of Western security. Trust, the foundation of NATO, begins to erode. When one member acts independently at a critical moment, a dangerous question emerges. Do alliances still hold under pressure? Washington watches Madrid with growing suspicion. And across Europe, governments face a dilemma. Follow collective strategy, or protect national survival. A new energy order emerging. This is no longer a temporary disruption. It is the beginning of a structural shift. Spain's decision has triggered a chain reaction that could reshape the global energy map. Russia, meanwhile, adapts faster than expected, redirecting exports to Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, locking in long-term contracts. Energy is no longer just supply. It is leverage. The brutal question. At the heart of Europe, one cold question now echoes. Who will replace 20 billion cubic meters of Russian gas? No clear answer exists. Alternatives fall short. Qatar lacks capacity. Africa lacks infrastructure. US. LNG is expensive and competitive. Meanwhile, Russian gas remains stable, scalable, and deeply embedded in Europe's system. A harsh reality. Green energy cannot yet save Europe. Renewables remain dependent on weather. Storage systems are insufficient. Grids lack full integration. Gas remains the backbone. And without it, the entire system enters a state of constant strain. Russia changes the game. Moscow is no longer reacting, it is redefining the rules. Instead of chasing Europe, Russia is building new markets. Energy flows toward partners willing to sign long-term, stable agreements. With logistics expanded and diplomatic channels aligned, Russia turns pressure into advantage. The silent shock: prices could triple. If Middle East tensions escalate further, gas prices in Europe could rise by 200%. That means heating bills triple, production costs surge, consumer demand weakens, a chain reaction across the entire economy. Final reality: this crisis strips away illusions. In a world driven by energy, morality exists until it is tested. And when survival is at stake, what remains is not ideology, but interest.